All right, well, welcome back to Chapter 5 in CSIS 1175. We're going to carry on with going through and explaining the next basic concepts in Introduction to Computer Programming, which have to do with loops, which sometimes are referred to as repetition structures. We're going to talk about files and accessing files from external sources, primarily text files, and a random number generator. So that's kind of the key focus of Chapter 5, but we will be looking at more details, of course. This is going to take us a couple of weeks to get through. So in the previous chapter we looked at these list boxes, and in this chapter we're going to look at them as how we can use them as output devices rather than just static information in a list box, but we'll also have to use a list box to dynamically add and change in a list box. The while loop is one of the repetition structures that we're going to look at, and also these incrementers or counters operators for stepping and counting how many times do we want to loop or repeat something. We'll look at a fundamental syntax that's been around for a long time called the for loop, a do while loop. So those are the three main loops that we'll be looking at in this chapter. So that's the do while, the for, and the while loop. We'll be also reviewing how to access files to take data and store data in text files, which is kind of a neat process, by using also two other controls, one called open a file dialog and save a file dialog. And those two will be used for saving a text file or opening a text file and then using and accessing file information inside of those files. Looking at the random number generator, which we use in all sorts of programs, and also a new event called the load event handler. So this will be the focus. Now to do this, I will be using another sort of program here to sort of encapsulate all of these learning objectives by actually getting you to go in and write the code. Now I will be providing all of the form controls, so you won't be having to do any controls for this chapter whatsoever. And I'm also going to provide quite a bit of the code, but I'm also going to be getting you to modify and change each of the codes. So we're going to start off here at the shopping list, and just to give you a sort of a quick run through of how this works. You're going to be able to go in and add an item here, and simply using a list box, output the data into that list box. So previously we've been using a label control to do that, so we've got a new control here, and then we can clear it and repeat that process. So this is an example of building a shopping list program. Now the next one here is, again, we've looked at this one. This is again another list box, and we put in static information here for all the months. And this one here looks pretty straightforward, where we select a particular month and it tells us how many days in that particular month. Now, with the exception of February, of course, which is, we'll have a look at how to modify this code to make sure that we get the correct one if it happens to be a leap year. We'll be going into counting, and that will allow us to count basically, or increment any range of numbers or any amount of times using a variety of different methods. And then when should you use those methods, and what particular cases should you do that. So this is an example where basically all three of these work identical outputs, but they're using different syntaxes. In this example here, this is allowing us to access a file. So let's say I type in a course. I've got a new control here called a date picker, and I can add that, and it'll add it to an external text file. And then I can list that text file in here. I can create a new file to clear it all out, and we can type in a brand new course here and add that and list that one. So this one here is accessing how you want to open up a text file and save that information. All right, this is just a formula for calculating a loan, and we'll be looking at how to do that, and it'll calculate. And finally, we have a date picker, and random number generator that will pick a number between 1 and 52, because we might use that for, let's say, a card game, for example. And then a couple controls on how to save information to an external source. All right, so that's what we're going to be covering in Chapter 5, and this is going to take us quite a few videos, and it'll take us a couple weeks in class. All right, so see you guys in class.